raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with your hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is in an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Men Talking Mindfulness. I'm one of your hosts, John McCaskill, and today we're doing something a little different and incredibly exciting, at least incredibly exciting to us. We've always said that this space is as much yours as it is ours, and in that spirit, we're turning the mic over to you, our amazing audience.
That's right, John. Hey, everybody. I'm the better looking one. I mean, the other co-host. John wrote this script for me, by the way, so I'm not just...
Well, you are better looking.
It doesn't matter. Relative. I'm Will Schneider. Over the past few weeks or even longer, many of you have submitted your questions via our voicemail system, and keep submitting them. We're going to play those questions live here on the air and tackle them head on. Whether you've been wondering about the intricacies of meditation, the nuances of mindfulness, or anything about wellness in general, we're here to help you with that.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic opportunity for us to connect more deeply with our listeners, address specific queries, and maybe even dispel a few myths along the way. So let's get into our announcements. Our opening grounding practice. If you've never joined us before, that's how we do it. We do an opening practice and then a closing practice at the end to kind of bookend the show. And then we're going to get into our first voice memo and see what's on the minds of our listeners today. Will, I'm going to turn it over to you for any announcements that you may have.
Hey, well, you know what? We have a very special announcement, John, and a big celebration. We just had our first international merch sale.
I saw that.
Andreas, thank you so much, over in Austria. We ship in stuff. Men Talking Mindfulness, reaching Austria right now. So thank you, Andreas, for hitting up our merch store, our shop store. So mentalkingmindfulness.com/shop. You can pick up our merch. It's like, don't be surprised at the sticker shock. We're not receiving a dime of these goods at all. So thank you for supporting the show, spreading the word. We have hats and t-shirts and mugs and tumblers and all sorts of great, even stickers. So thanks for supporting. And thank you all for being here, for tuning in, for sharing our podcast, for helping us grow, and for becoming more mindful. And last, hey, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. And if you search Men Talking Mindfulness, you can find us. Follow us. Put the little, what do they call that? The awareness button or something like that, a little bell, so you can see when we're releasing new content. And again, we really appreciate you being here and supporting the show, and share it with your friends as well, which would be a big help. But let's do that grounding practice. And a lot of you had questions about like getting grounded and, what does it take to, stay at peak performance kind of thing. And just taking these 5 breaths is going to be a huge asset to help you achieve what you want to achieve and kind of live and maximize your potential. So let's start just really simply. We'll just do 5 breaths, right? Really trying to get that breath nice and deep into our belly. Close the eyes if you like as we take our first exhale out. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Yeah, empty out completely. Feel that emptiness and take a nice big inhale through the nose. Keep inhaling. Take a nice little pause and very intentionally slow your exhale out. And push all the breath easy out. And even kind of relax the body and the mind a little bit more as you exhale again. In for a big breath of 5 seconds. Out nice and easy, very deliberate, very slow, very intentional. Again, in. And exhale. See if you can drop deeper into your seat or deeper into your feet and really feel the grounding and the support of the earth underneath you. 2 more. In. Out. One more. Big breath in. Fill it up. Big, deep balloon. And let that go nice and easy. And just take a little moment, coming back to normal breath, and keep the eyes closed if that's available for you. And just notice where you were just a minute and a half ago, and then 5 breaths later, and just kind of checking in and reflecting on how incredibly profound and simple just taking a few breaths can be to shift you from states of anxiety and stress and into a deeper grounded and a means of accessing more potential, because now we're dropped into the parasympathetic nervous system, the executive function, and now we just become more alive and more of ourselves. So that's what the breath can do, everybody. So open your eyes when you're ready, and let's dive into these questions, Jon. We've been working on this one for quite a while. So thanks for setting this up. This is what Jon's, what do they call it? Like a big idea in sense of like having a great way to connect with all of you. So maybe give us a little history of that, Jon, and we can dive into the first one.
Yeah, my wife and I were in San Francisco, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, and I was listening to another podcast, and the 2 hosts did this very thing, and it seemed to really connect the audience with the show. And I thought, hey, maybe we can do that. So here we are. We're going to have your questions on. So let's do our first question. So let's see what we got here. A little drum roll for you. Here is the first question.
Hey guys, this is James Corbett, and I wanted to know, what is a good way for you to practice mindfulness before a big speech, either the night before and or minutes before? Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's a great one. I do a lot of keynote speaking, and hopefully that came across well enough for everyone to hear. But the question was basically how to prepare yourself for a big speech, either the night before or minutes before. And I do a lot of keynote speaking, and the night before is huge. Maybe some grounding meditations, much like Will and I just did, or you all just did, something that really gets you connected into the present moment and helps you to tap into, like Will said, that parasympathetic state. A good night's rest is critical too. And if you're constantly stewing about what it is you might screw up on stage, what it is you might forget on stage, then you're not going to get a good night's rest, and then you're not going to perform as well. So doing some type of grounding meditation, one that I was teaching recently with Will, is the 4-7-8 breath work. And that's taking a breath in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 7, and then breathing out for a count of 8. And that slow exhalation helps you to really activate that parasympathetic state of the nervous system. And that's a really great one to get some rest prior to. And then, the day of, just a few minutes before the speech, it's been proven that if you stand in kind of like the Superman stance with your hands on your waist, that can help to increase testosterone, which can help to increase your confidence and increase your performance. But as you're doing that, maybe do some deep belly breaths. Again, breathing nice and deep into the belly first, then into the chest, holding that for a few seconds, then nice slow exhalation. That's kind of my practice that I do before I get up on stage. Will, any insights from your side?
Well, if you buy a Men Talking Mindfulness t-shirt, wear it underneath your suit, it's been proven to actually improve performance. I'm just,
Indeed, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. There's
well
just
played.
a thought there. It's just a thought. I'm just kidding. I mean, I really didn't.
That's why we're wearing these shirts.
Plug our merch store, but whatever. I think a big asset would be, a visual the night before, visualization meditation, like seeing yourself being successful, feeling your feet in this visualization, like in that space, and also get a good night's sleep. And I would stay away from alcohol. Like,
oh, for sure.
Don't consume anything that's really going to kind of mess with you the next day. Day of, like, I would start with a meditation. Get out there, also do some exercise. Like, get in your body, right? Like, we continue to reward the body, it's going to help open up the mind. So maybe getting a little bit of a walk or some workout if you have the ability. Get the heart rate up, get the sweat going a little bit, and then just like we did earlier, that 5 breaths, like that BAMO breath, if you will, like breathe and move on, like inhale for 5, exhale out the mouth, doing that 5 times, and really really work on very intently grounding. If you're standing for this talk, which most likely you will, like feeling your feet.
Right.
So those are some things like that that I suggest. Another thing that's really helped me in the past when I speak is like seeing the space before I go in.
I was just going there, man.
Yeah,
Yep.
just seeing the space, and that's going to help you with the visualization. Hopefully you can see it the day or two before, so that's going to help you with the meditation, or just even seeing, even the day of, just to kind of prepare the mind and for what's coming next. So those are what I would. And another thing I want to say is like prepare. Like don't sell yourself short. Like you're giving a talk or whatever. John and I are both over preppers in a lot of ways, but I like to prepare so much that when, not to create anxiety, but just when it comes time to deliver, I'm so ready, because sometimes there's so many different moving elements in that space that might kind of wake up and try to distract you. But if you're really prepared and really ready, you'll be able to kind of avoid those distractions, or even utilize distractions to help enhance your speech. So
right.
There's some things there.
I saw another great one on, I think it was actually a TED Talk on talking. And it had something to do with, reframing how you feel about the energy that you're feeling. So many people feel that nervous energy, and
right.
they frame it as, oh man, I've got butterflies. I'm gonna get up there and forget everything. But that nervous energy can actually be a good thing. Like that shows that you care about what it is you're doing. You care
right.
about the audience walking away with a good message. So reframe it. Rather than calling it nervous energy or anxiety, call it excitement. Like you're excited to be up on stage. Yeah, you're gonna feel a little bit nervous. So that's another important thing. And yeah, Will, great. I'm glad that you hit on going to see the stage beforehand. That way it helps you to visualize yourself. I mean, you go see the stage, and then when you're in your hotel room or wherever you are, the night prior, you can actually lay there on the bed and visualize yourself on the stage and going through the talk and everything else. So great point. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for the question there, James. All right, let's get into the second question here we got.
What would be 3 ways that you would say are optimal ways to incorporate meditation and mindfulness into a company or a corporate setting to help employees with their mental health and their resilience?
Yeah, great question. Will, you want to field this one first, and I'll jump in?
I mean, some notes I came up with here, and what we've actually been doing with companies that we've been working with is, I have here, like, just if there's 3 ways, I would say learn how to relax as a group. So doing a group meditation, a group breathing practice, and really experience kind of that calm humanity of group relaxation. And it's like when you are able to energetically, individually and as a group kind of ground, it kind of turns a light on, like, hey, I don't need to be all stressed here. Like I can really, get calm. When I get calm, I have a clear mind, and I'm going to speak more clearly and activate, the ideas and the creativity, even more succinctly as well. Something about corporate situations as well. It might take a lot of strong leadership in order to do this, because you will more than likely experience some resistance. But if you have like a good, strong leader that is practicing and encouraging these practices, and that'll help to trickle down to the rest of the people. But that doesn't mean it has to be top down all the time. It could be from a group of people, like trying to corral a group to work together. I have another thing. It's like, maybe start a ritual of starting your meetings with a grounding practice would be a great way. And again, to remind yourself and re-experience as a team the ability to self-regulate. And to go even step further, and what we've also been doing is provide your company with an experience. So calling us in for like a day workshop or something like that. I know it seems like we shamelessly plugging everything, but you know what I mean? This is what we do, you know what I mean? And we have profound effects on people that we work with or companies that we're working with. So providing an experience, instead of just it being an idea or like kind of one-off like meditation or something you do, but getting a deeper experience can really wake up your company and your corporation or your business into like what's possible by getting to calm instead of being reactive and overcome with emotions and just being continually emotionally driven throughout the day.
Yeah,
so that's what I have, John. Yeah.
Great points, Will. And we had former or retired Lieutenant Colonel Janelle McCauley on a few months ago.
Yeah.
and she was one of the kind of leaders of bringing mindfulness into the Air Force actively. And she would start, like you mentioned, she would start some of her meetings off with a breathing exercise. And, 85% of the people would participate. She knew that there was, another 15 who wouldn't necessarily participate. But when she did that, people connected better. They were more calm. They were more creative. So maybe they were able to come up with more creative solutions, those types of things. So very much encourage kicking off your meetings with kind of like we did, the grounding practice for kicking off the show. And it's just as much for us here, myself and Will, so that we can be grounded and in touch with what it is we're talking about as it is for you all as the audience. So that's a great way. We talked, and again, kind of a plug here, sideways plug, but we do the mindful workshops with some teams, and some of the things that we teach in those workshops are mindful breaks, the importance of taking those breaks. So many of us are in back-to-back Zoom calls. You schedule your Zoom calls for an hour, and you sometimes take an hour and 3 minutes, and you're late to your next Zoom call. So you're starting off in this reactive state. Maybe scheduling your Zoom calls for 50 minutes, take 2 or 3 minutes to process the call you just did, take 2 or 3 minutes to take a mindful break, just process how you're feeling in your body, physically and emotionally, and then 2 or 3 minutes to prepare for the next call. I think that's a great way. If you have longer, maybe getting up and doing a mindful break where you're walking around and actually getting the blood flowing in your body, because that's good for your body, yes, but it's also great for the mind. So taking those mindful breaks in between those calls. And then, Will, I love the kind of the group sessions and what that does for an organization to do some kind of practice together, so you're not the one and only person doing it. I think those are great ways to tie everyone together. So thank you for that question. I won't name names if you didn't name yourself. So I know who you are, but thank you for your question. And we'll move on to the next one here. Let's see what we got.
Hey, Jon and Will. I have personally improved my well-being as part of this community, so thanks for all that you're putting out there. Mindfulness and meditation can sometimes seem at odds with the warrior spirit and a person's competitive nature. What thoughts or recommendations can you share about grit and perseverance, sometimes associated with suffering, and recognizing when one should take a pause to rebalance mind, body, and soul?
Ooh, that is a great question.
Deep question, yeah.
It is deep. Thank you. And again, I know who you are, but I won't name names if you didn't name yourself.
I don't know who the last two people are, so I'm just like, I'm in the anonymous state as well, so it's great.
Well, that's awesome. Great question. And this comes, it is very near and dear to my heart. With coming from a warrior community, coming from the SEAL teams, and now doing what I do now, it seems as though those two things are at odds. But if you look at some of the ancient warriors, the Spartans and the samurai, a lot of them practice some form of meditation or mindfulness prior to going on the battlefield. And what I think about is, who do I want next to me on the battlefield? Do I want somebody that is super, super charged up and kind of getting into that sympathetic state where you start to see through like a soda straw? Or do I want somebody who is more calm and able to see everything on the battlefield? I personally want the latter. I want somebody who is calm and is taking in the entire situational. I mean, mindfulness is really situational awareness when you really boil it down to it. It's being aware of the present moment, everything that's happening in the present moment, what you're feeling, what you're seeing. I want somebody who is situationally aware. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece. And I don't think that the warrior spirit and competitiveness, I don't think they're mutually exclusive from mindfulness. And then, taking it a step further to your question, grit and perseverance, I think that's a part of mindfulness. One of our new shirts says, strong mind, stronger man on it. Mm-hmm. And I think that having that strong mind is going to give you the ability to have that grit and that perseverance. I mean, it takes grit and perseverance to practice mindfulness and meditation. So I think that's a little bit. And then, the true warrior, I think the true warrior also knows when it is time to kind of recharge and recuperate. And then the other side is when it's time to charge the hill. There's, again, kind of two different sides of the same coin, but you need to rest and recuperate in order to charge that hill. So that's my 2 cents on kind of embracing the warrior spirit and mindfulness, grit, and perseverance. Thank you for that question.
Well, a true master warrior never draws his sword.
True.
I mean, like if they absolutely last resort, yes, they'll draw their sword. But so why aren't they drawing their sword? Well, I have here, we have a competitive nature. It's just how we are as human beings, especially as men. Like we seem to definitely are able to get those competitive juices flowing. Yeah, and in that peace for warrior spirit, that keeping your sword sheathed, but maintaining, like Jordan Peterson says, like you can still be dangerous, right? But you don't have to be threatening, or you don't have to be authoritative, or you don't have to be an asshole. You know what I mean? So how do you make it a win-win, like in whatever situation you're doing? Because if you're just going in to kind of kill and crush it and eradicate your opponent, or like if you're looking at the other person enemy, it's like no one's going to win, because you're both going to walk away feeling like crap because you haven't hit the middle ground. So I think a win-win is always a place to look, especially like kind of like a master level, warrior and negotiator and adult, to be honest. So I have here, like, don't let that's why it's so important to ground and practice as much as you can. Like really get to your mat every day to do some sort of practice, whether it's meditation or something that really speaks to you on a deeper level than just your mind. And that's going to help you get away from the biochemistry that really takes us into deeper the deeper aspects of competitiveness and really trying to destroy our enemy instead of trying to find that win-win. So staying calm, staying cool, staying collected is really important. And I have here also, it's like, I'm just reading through this again. Yeah, you have down here suffering and when should I take a pause, rebalance mind, body, and soul? So just kind of getting into that space for a moment. It's like, check if, make sure, are you burning out? And one way, to maybe see if you're burning out is if you have no ability, and they call this stacking, no ability to like take a break, like Jon was just talking about in a Zoom call. But how about taking a break, from shifting from your home life or your work life to your home life? And if you don't have that ability just to kind of take a few minutes and just kind of, all right, I'm putting the hat of father, parent, husband, homemaker on, and shifting into that space like properly and intentionally, and you're just kind of running around from one thing to the next to the next to the next, instead of like taking these moments and really being intentional about what you're getting to next, then you might be struggling with some burnout, and maybe you got to take a deeper look and a way to kind of de-escalate and relax. And I suggest getting back to nature is a great way, to kind of find more of that balance, like go on a hike or, the gym on a weekly basis and getting your body's good. But what about getting back to nature, and like whether it's walking in barefoot, forest bathing, taking in some breath work while you're out there. Another thing just to avoid burnout is setting boundaries, like, find ways to shut down at night, to reduce, some stress. But also it's like, set some boundaries around your technology as well.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be go all the time. And another thing is just, and you're going to hear some of the same things over and over as we go through this. It's like getting good sleep. Like there's if you want to learn about better sleep, we have a great episode with Nita Shattuck. Dr. Nita Shattuck, who works at the Naval Postgrad, and we had a wonderful episode with her, I think in season 4, about better sleep. And that's just a great way to listen to that, plug in the show again. All good. I mean, there's a lot of great information, information in there.
Another great episode with Robert Sweetman on that.
Yes.
I mean, the audio was probably less than ideal, but the information that Robert put out on sleep and ways to get better sleep and kind of the cognitive setup that we have for, like, if you're getting bad sleep, then you convince yourself that you're a bad sleeper, and doing some type of cognitive behavioral therapy to rewire how you think about how you sleep. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. And that's where I'd stay with that. Yeah. Get physical, get out there, release the stress of your day.
Right on.
As a way to find balance. So thank you for that, anonymous person, that comment. So awesome.
This one is not anonymous. This one is from someone that we both know well. This one is from Dr. Teresa Larson. Here we go. Let's see.
Hey guys,
there it is.
This is Teresa, and my question for you is, if someone, let's say you're speaking to an HR manager or an executive about how mindfulness and meditation can help their people and the growth of their company, so performance and people, what would you say? Are there any stats, or are there any key messages that you could share that could help them understand that it is a key indicator for helping the performance of the company and their people? Thanks, guys.
There you go. Dr. T coming in strong. We love working with Dr. T, and definitely looking forward to answering this. And it's similar to one of the questions we had before. And like we said, there's going to be some overlap here. But I think what we've talked about already in the show, and what we've talked about in past episodes is mindfulness is great for reducing stress, reducing anxiety, potentially helping you to handle depression better, different mental health challenges that come along the way. But most of the time when you're talking to an HR rep or maybe the C-suite executives, they care about that. And I'm going to sound pretty crass here, but I think a lot of HR and CEOs, C-suite, yes, they care about that, but what they care about primarily, at least most of them, not everyone, and we know and we work with some that do not fit this mold, obviously, but they think about the bottom line. They want to know what's going to improve the performance of their people, what's going to improve their productivity, their focus. So I think that is a way to show that mindfulness can be a performance enhancer. And as a matter of fact, coming back to like how I was introduced to mindfulness and meditation, aside from when I first started doing some breathing exercises on the shooting range, because I didn't call it mindfulness and meditation when I did that. I just called it breath work or whatever. But when I had a counselor recommend mindfulness and meditation to me to handle my stress, my anxiety, my survivor's guilt, moral injury, whatever, I kind of laughed at him. I didn't kind of laugh at him. I did laugh at him. Right. And then he sold it to me as a performance enhancer. He said, what if I had a pill that you could take that would increase your performance personally and professionally, mentally and emotionally? I was like, heck yeah, doc, I'll take that. And this sounds rehearsed because it's part of one of my speeches, but yes, I would take that, because as a SEAL, I'm always looking for an edge. I'm looking for an edge over my enemy on the battlefield, or I'm looking for an edge over my buddy right next to me. I'm always looking for an edge. So yeah, doc, I would take that pill. Well, I'm sure you can guess what's coming. It wasn't the pill. It was mindfulness and meditation. So I started mindfulness and meditation to actually improve my performance, and then the byproducts, side effects, whatever you want to call it, was that I was better able to handle my stress, my anxiety, my depression. Now, it didn't go away, but I had new tools to help me handle it and process it. So I think that's a piece. It can improve your ability to process that stress, and that can lead to less absenteeism at work. And when I say absenteeism, I'm not just talking physical absenteeism. Yes, that's absolutely a problem, but there's also mental absenteeism, right? You get the people who show up at work, but mentally they're absent. And I always think about that movie that was so popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, whenever it was, Office Space, right? When the guy got hypnotized, and the hypnosis, the guy doing the hypnosis actually died in the middle of it. So he was permanently hypnotized to be more relaxed at work. I think about that, and the absenteeism rate that can be reduced through implementing mindfulness and meditation at work. And then we've talked about this also. There's studies that have shown that mindfulness improves focus, cognitive flexibility, enhanced productivity, and then better emotional intelligence, because you're tapping into both lobes of the brain, right and left. You can actually tap into better emotional intelligence, and I think that's a part that you have to sell to HR so that you can bring those other side effects or additional benefits, if you will, to the employees.
I'd walk them into it in some ways. Ask them their question. It's like, so what are you doing to improve the focus of your company? What are you doing to enhance creativity? What are you doing for the overall like health and or maybe not health, but and well-being of your company? Like, how are you mitigating stress in your environment? Are you aware of what stress does to the human being and what it does to a team and what it does to a company? Maybe asking these questions and kind of bring them in. It's like, oh, well, no, we don't do anything to focus. No, we don't do anything to minimize stress. No, we don't, really look at our employees at all, except as a social security number, and they just need to do their job.
Right.
So if you come from a health and human centric way of being, you're going to create more retention. You're going to create an environment within your company that people feel like they're valued, right? And not just a kind of a gear in the machine, but like an actual person being respected for being a human being. And what is the human experience? It's dynamic. It's like up and down. It's like you have you have life inside, outside of work, and if you're again honoring the human being and kind of speaking to maybe HR in that way and asking those questions like how are they taking care of these things which have a detrimental effect on teamwork, on communication, on innovation, on and essentially the bottom line, then maybe that's a great way to kind of pull them in, is by asking those questions. Because from my experience, most companies aren't doing any of this work right now. They might have like let's have a seminar on stress, and it's
right.
and maybe they just talk about it, or maybe they do a couple breathing practices, but then they kind of forget about it because it's like go on to the next thing. Yeah.
It's like the bathtub reference, right? The nice essential oil bathtub or whatever to deal with burnout. That's not the answer. That might help in the very moment, but it's not going to be a long-term answer. So a lot of companies are putting these Band-Aids on that really need to address the root cause. Like addressing the symptom, that's not working. We need to address the root cause of these symptoms. So I think that's where mindfulness meditation, a lot of what we teach with you, Teresa, right? I mean, we're answering Teresa's question, but a lot of what we teach with you, Teresa, taking care of the body and the mind together and how important those two are, because as we can see, I mean, we're sitting here, our heads on top of our bodies, we're inextricably intertwined. As you heal one, you heal the other. So,
and also if you have we have some testimonials from CEOs and stuff. It's like, if the CEO that you're working with is willing to talk to another, leader of some company or HR and talk about the benefits, like, wow, like there's no better testimonial than that, to help, get in there and help that company that needs it. Cause I know even if your environment is really good and you have a great team, like you can still benefit from doing these practices on a regular basis.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Teresa, for chiming in. Thank you for your question. All right, let's get on to voice memo number 5. Here we go.
Hey, guys, just wondering, for people who are just getting into mindfulness and meditation and they don't know where to start, what is the best way for someone who has no background in mindfulness or meditation to begin? How do they get started so that they keep it going? Thanks.
Right on. Will, you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah. So I have getting to calm. What does it take to get to calm? And that can start in many different places. And when you kind of experience that natural state of peace that's within us, right? And I'll talk about practice in a second, but the light starts to turn on because you start to experience yourself in a different way. You begin to perceive and be in the world in a different way when you get to calm. And then how do you get to calm more often? And that's what these practices are for. Taking on breath practices or meditation or just even getting to the gym. One thing, I think just from a basic mindfulness awareness point of view, start with something different, than whatever you're normally doing, because what you're normally doing is just producing the results you're having right now. So what new input can you put in to kind of get to that calmer self? I would also say, like, get in your body. Like, if you're, have been eating very unhealthy, maybe put on a tremendous amount of weight, maybe you had that weight on for a long time, and you've just been really sacrificing the body. Again, like, the body it could be your best friend and it could be your worst enemy. If you're really befriending your body by getting out there and exercising for a certain amount of time every day, and, like, but also exercising your mind with just, it could be meditation or breathing practice or something like that, you're going to be rewarded. Your gut body's going to be like, yeah, I want more of that. Right. And then you're going to start designing your life around that, and making different choices about your food. And all of a sudden you're, like, respecting more of your sleep, and maybe you're, eating less junk food or drinking less alcohol or something like that. Um, and I would say, if you're just starting on the path, right, and you're just like, what do I do? Like you said, like, where do I go? How do I start? It's like, dedicate some time on trying different practices, and not just one and done. Like, maybe just start with, like, just sitting and breathing for 5 or 10 minutes a day. We have a bunch of meditations and breathing practices that are part of our podcast feed. We actually have a playlist of all the meditations and breathing practices that we have developed and launched so far on Spotify. So maybe we can put that somewhere. We'll figure that. Yeah. We'll put that somewhere, that link. But stick with that practice, whether, maybe get up and just walk in the morning. And I keep coming back to the morning because that's really going to help you set the rest of your day. Instead of being reactive to the rest of the day by kind of rolling out of bed and just kind of, sauntering through and, just kind of doing the same old and getting the same results. What if you create different input in the morning and, taking on some sort of practice? Does not, again, like Jon said earlier, it doesn't have to be long. 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes, maybe something longer, maybe it's a long walk, but start your day off on your terms instead of everyone else's terms. And I said, what I have here is keep it simple, keep it doable, and keep it repeatable.
Yeah.
Right. So,
huge.
like, those 3 things are very, like, because the more that you show up and make the time for show up, not hoping it shows up, make the time on your calendar, just like any other appointment, is going to be a big difference. And then last I have here is accountability. If you can, maybe, ask your spouse or loved one or some other person that you'd like to bring into this, or just hold you accountable, whether it's text or whether it's phone call or whether they're actually out there walking or meditating with you. Like, that's going to increase your likelihood of success and of you showing up and practicing much greater by getting a buddy involved as well.
100%, man. 100%. And we've talked about that on the show again in the past. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Yeah.
The way that I started very small. I went back after that doc recommended that I practice mindfulness and meditation for my own performance enhancement. And Will knows this story. He's heard it a bunch of times. I tried to sit down for an hour-long meditation the very next day, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out well because my mind wandered off within 20 seconds or so, and then I started getting frustrated with the meditation, and I went back to that same doc the following week, and I told him that it was a bunch of BS. And he asked me how I started, and told him what I just said, and he's like, well, that's like lining up at the starting line of a marathon without ever having run a step before, or going into the weight room and getting under 350 pounds on the bench press without ever having lifted weights before. You can't do that. Right. You got to start small. And so he introduced me to box breathing, which is just breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, and holding for the count of 4, and doing that 4 or 5 times. And the funny thing is, I had learned to do that, again, as I mentioned earlier on the show, I'd learned to do that on the shooting range before, to calm my heart rate down, to calm my respiratory rate down. But I hadn't applied it in my everyday life. And now I started to apply it in my everyday life, just starting small, like Will said, a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there. Adding that up, there's the compounding interest, right? You start to feel better over time, and you start to see that what it is you're doing is actually paying off. Just like the gym, you're not going to go in and work out for 2 hours at a time day one, or if you do, you're going to be hurting. But maybe if you start out with something simple for 15, 20 minutes, and then build on that over a few weeks, you're going to start to build that foundation and start to feel the change, start to see the change in the mirror, in the gym analogy, but in yourself and how you feel in the meditation. Like, it got to a point where I started to feel the difference in myself and then somebody came up to me at work and they asked me what I was taking, what I was on, because there was that much of a difference. But yeah, you just got to stick with it. The consistency is key. Now, actually getting into it, like, how do you start, right? Well, there's tons of apps out there. There's, the Headspace, there's Calm, there's Insight Timer. Will and I are both on Insight Timer. A lot of our meditations are on there. Then we have, like Will mentioned, we've got our own meditations on Spotify as well, under the Men Talking Mindfulness show. And then we have a 21-day mindfulness challenge that we actually built with Dr. Teresa Larson. That was the voice that you heard earlier. And you guys can get access to that. And you can just text the word mindful21, so MINDFUL 21 to 33777, and then you can get access to that 21-day challenge for only $9. I know it seems like this show is a big sales pitch, but hey, we've got some things that are out there to help you all. So we want to give you those resources. And then Will has the midweek reset. What is it? Refresh
sesh. Yeah,
there it is. And that's tonight, right?
Yeah, Insight Timer, 5:00, and this one's free. You know what I mean? And it's a simple 30 minutes breath and meditation class. It's on Insight Timer. Actually, John, I'm gonna start doing it live on LinkedIn.
Oh wow!
And then I'm gonna why not? Fuck it, right?
Yeah.
And, I'm just gonna have and I think I'm gonna have a third camera, John, eventually.
Oh
do
man, getting all
Instagram
fancy.
live too, right? Just hit all three. I mean,
yeah.
I have enough tripods and cameras.
Why not? Man?
And I have audience in all three of those, not audience, students in all three of those places. And it's just just show up. Even if it's I don't know who this gentleman is that, asking this question, but just getting there and just dedicating that 30 minutes once a week. Watch the lights go on, watch the doors start to open, watch the questions you start to ask yourself, because you're going to experience yourself again in a different way. And it's that difference, I think, through so much of this we're talking about, John, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's your own personal life, is shift away from how you have been doing things, right? And shift in to more calm, more clarity, more peacefulness, more presence, just by doing something healthy for yourself. One thing I'll say, John, as well is I've been if you feel like mindfulness and this stuff is kind of for sissies and weaker people or whatever, right? I just did it again today. I do the 11-minute inner fire breathing practice with Wim Hof on YouTube.
I love it.
And it's just 11 minutes, you just jump right in, follow along, and that is I've been doing it for 6 months now, every day for 6 months. And
we did it last week.
We did it last week together before before we stepped on stage, or before we stepped into our classroom with the company we're working with, because we want to be prepared. We want to keep the lights on. We want to keep that focus. We want to keep that energy moving through us. So that could be great. That inner fire breathing practice is just, wow. After just even 4 or 5 days of doing that, you're really going to feel a massive difference in yourself, because of how that breathing practice lends itself to just activating so much of more of our human biology.
Right. 100%, man. 100%. All right, let's move on. Thank you again for that question. I actually don't know who that one was, but
all good. Just another fantastic listener.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the question. So here we go with another one.
Hey, this question is for Will and Jon. 2 questions, actually. Number 1, how do you regulate your emotions? So if you're in a really heated conversation or argument, or just there's a lot of stuff going on and you're really tense, how do you self-regulate and kind of get your emotions in check? And then a follow-up question, if you are unable to regulate your emotions during that heated time, how do you repair the situation? So if maybe you said something that you regret or acted in a way that you regretted, what do you do to then repair that relationship? Looking forward to your response. Thanks, guys.
Awesome questions, and very important ones. We actually did an episode on crucial conversations a few months ago, and I think that's a book that's out there. But what we covered is the ways to have those crucial conversations. But we didn't cover the regulation during the heated moments, or at least not so much. And I know, Will, one of your favorite things is the STOP method, right? Stop, 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 take a breath, observe, and then proceed. So I think that is when you start to get heated, stop, right? Pause for a second, analyze what's happening. A lot of the time, and this comes back to the Crucial Conversations book and the conversation and the episode that we did on that. A lot of the time we get into a point where we're trying to win the conversation rather than actually get what we want out of the conversation. So like in a situation where, maybe a romantic couple is together and they're having a conversation and it starts to get escalated, rather than remembering what the conversation is about, it all becomes about winning the conversation. And those same things can happen in the workspace, but we got to stop, realize what's happening, realize what it is we want out of the conversation, then take that breath to, again, activate the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, which is the rest and digest. It's going to calm us down. Then observe your feelings. O is for observe your feelings, noticing what is going on for you emotionally and maybe even expressing that, and then proceed with that clearer mind. I think that's a part to the regulation. As far as repairing, we have to be adults. We have to be humble. There are times when we have to realize what happened was our fault, and maybe we acted out of character. So we have to apologize sincerely. I've got young kids, right? And quite often my young kids get into arguments, and I say, "Hey, I want you to say sorry." And man, it is a full-on fight to get them to say sorry, and that's dealing with young kids. But how often do we as adults actually take a stand and say, you know what, I screwed that up, I was wrong, I'm sorry, right? So I think acknowledging that you acted out of character and then apologizing sincerely, and then when you apologize, address specifically what happened, what action happened, why you're sorry about it, express that regret, and then talk about ways to potentially avoid that in the future. And then another piece that Will often talks about, and we've got episodes on this too, is active listening. When you apologize, listen to what the other person is saying in response to your apology, and try not to be reactive in that sense, but actively listening to their feelings and where they're coming from. So that's, in my opinion, that's a way to tie mindfulness and meditation into both the regulation and the repairing. Mindfulness and meditation, it's not just about meditation. You can be mindful in the conversations, mindful about how you're acting in the conversations, and I think that's the crucial points.
Yeah. Thank you. And as you were talking about that, Jon, so David's actually listening, our booking manager and production manager as well. So he's going to actually dumping someone asked about our merch store. He dumped that feed in there. I just have the Wim Hof link. I have our meditation links going there from Spotify and my Insight Timer class, just so people are aware that that's out there.
Awesome.
Jon, exactly. Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. And everything you mentioned was like it's like, yes, like, again, get to calm, right? Again, that breathing is going to be so important. Keep finding your feet. Like, I get into situations, I'm going to go home again this weekend, Jon. And, it's like kind of when I walk, when I get into the door, it's like I try to avoid as many landmines as I possibly can, and some of them have been sitting there since I've been like 14, 15 years old. You know what I mean? So it's like, so some of them can be very old and very deep. And when situations do arise in my family and people are trying to get under my skin, or just like they're not being mindful of how they're behaving or how they're speaking or something like that, I listen before I speak. I ground my feet before I speak. I take a lot of breaths before I speak. And if I have nothing productive to say and it's only going to make it worse, I really try to hold my tongue and don't say anything. And if I really, if the situation gets really heated, I'll just leave the room and come back, a little bit later when, maybe the energy of that situation has kind of subsided a little bit and we're of clear minds. As far as from repair, apologize if you need to. I mean, it's that's like, this is going to help you access vulnerability. I have here, like, eat your humble pie. And just even to go further, instead of like pointing blame, and which seems to be, a way some of our leaders like to behave, how about taking responsibility, and maybe how you're feeling, and not necessarily putting the blame of on the other person of how you're feeling, but just stating this situation makes me feel this way, and I don't want to feel this way or carry this tension between us. Maybe just kind of bringing it up in a very truthful, very honest, very present way of like not just like this intellectual jousting and trying to win that game of who's right, but really speaking from an emotional place, and how you're feeling, and then reminding yourself of of how important that relationship is, and what that relationship could look like. So those are some things, and then I have here, speak how meaningful this relationship is, and ask, what do we do? What do we need to do to move beyond this situation? And that might not happen in that instance if something like really blows up like very explosively and very quickly, but maybe a little bit later on, have that conversation or schedule time to have that conversation. So all those things are gonna and have here ask maybe as the situation is maybe developing in front of you, and the emotions start rising, and you're starting to feel like you want to fight back, or do something. What if maybe asking like, what do I need to do, or what can I do to de-escalate this situation? Or help in some way. And again, that could be apologizing, or taking any kind of needed action. And again, leave the situation if you're unable to de-escalate at that time. But
I think making sure when you do ask that question, don't ask it in a patronizing way, right? I think that's critical. And then the leaving the situation, if you need to, I think that's also very important. And I got one of the worst pieces of advice I ever got right before my first marriage. I'm divorced and remarried, but one of the pieces of advice that I got was, and I'm sure some of our listeners have heard this, is never go to sleep angry.
Oh yeah.
And so
I like this.
Yeah, so I went. I tried to follow that piece of advice, and what often happened was I ended up pushing my now ex-wife to a state that it was explosive, and we had massive arguments that if I just kind of disengaged and stepped away and gone to sleep angry and just maybe let us sleep through the night and realize that both of us had valid points and both of us had maybe overreacted about certain things, and then come back and re-engage when we had calmed down, got some rest, because quite often being tired can make you more irritable. Now we're refreshed, reset, and re-engage in the conversation instead of an argument. So personally, I think that was one of the worst pieces of advice I ever got, and I do not subscribe to that advice anymore. So, if you have an opportunity when you're really worn out to disengage and go reset and rejuvenate, if that's through sleep or maybe just some rest, then do that, and then come back and have that conversation when you're reset. So I think that's a very important piece. All right. Thank you for that question, or questions, I guess. So, all right. This is the last voice memo we have, and if we have time, we've got some written questions that we might get into, but here's the last voice memo we have.
Hey, Jono. This is Jen. So my question is about how to balance things, such as trying to get the right amount of sleep, then the family and your own personal things that you want to do, and work, and just just being an adult, I guess. But when worse comes to worse, what do you do? What do you drop? What do you put first to refocus, rebuild that foundation, and then try to go back at it again? Because we all get so overwhelmed, but I'm just wondering, in your perspective, what is most important? What is your rock of Gibraltar? Anyway, it's always a pleasure, man. I hope you'll have a great day. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Hey, Jen, great to hear from you. She called me Jono there. That's my childhood nickname. My parents still call me by Jono. My family does anyway. So Jono, Jono. But yeah, Jen, I think it's balancing everything that we have going on in our lives. In this day and age, we all have so much going on. The responsibilities of adulthood, the responsibilities of parenthood. There's this myriad, like you use that word, this challenge, all these challenges that we're all facing. And I think the key lies in being honest with yourself and actually prioritizing. I put something on LinkedIn the other day. The world was starting to get ahead of me, and I was starting to put everybody else's priorities at the top of my priority list. But I think you need to be honest with yourself about what your priorities are, and then understanding that it's okay to not have everything balanced perfectly all the time. I talk about work-life integration instead of work-life balance. I hate work-life balance because I feel trying to achieve the perfect work-life balance is actually in and of itself a stressor. Like, you're like, oh man, I spent too much time at work. Now I've got to spend more time at home. Oh no, I've spent too much time at home. Now I've got to spend more time at work. Find a way to integrate that. And then for me, my rock of Gibraltar, if you will, and I love that, is my mental and emotional well-being. If I'm not feeling that centeredness, the groundedness, then everything falls apart. And that comes into the mindfulness, it comes into the sleep, comes into the physical exercise that I get. It comes into eating well. If I'm eating like crap, then I start to feel like crap. Then I don't sleep well. Now it's just a downward spiral. So I think my emotional and mental well-being is my rock of Gibraltar. So if things start to get in the way of that, then I have to put that first. And this could be as simple as me stepping out and taking a 10-minute walk, taking a break in between Zoom calls, like I talked about before, or just sitting in silence for a few moments. So that's a piece of it is my rock of Gibraltar. And then when it comes to the personal versus work responsibilities, I think it's, and Will and I have talked about this and still talk about it regularly, is having clear boundaries. And once you set those, you actually have to maintain them. So many of us are great about setting these boundaries, but then we don't respect them, our own boundaries and other people's. So this means saying no. Like, a lot of people come to you and they're going to ask you, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And the inclination is you want to be the hero and kind of save everybody, and you want to say yes to everybody, but you can't. So you have to find a way to say no, and no, saying no without having any type of validation, just saying no, I can't do that. Like, again, another piece of saying no, everybody feels like they have to say no because of this or no because of that. No is a complete sentence, is what I heard, and you just have to be you have to get comfortable saying no, because if you say yes to everything, what you're essentially doing is saying no. You're not going to be able to give your best to everything, so you have to say no. And then lastly, it's important to take a step back and reevaluate those priorities. I mean, my priorities when I was an 18-year-old versus my priorities when I was a 30-year-old versus my priorities now, they're completely different. And you have to reevaluate those priorities from time to time. I think that's very important for assessing where you're at and how to drop some things off and prioritize others. So I hope that answers your questions, Jen. Always great to hear from you. So anything, Will?
Yeah, I would just emphasize prioritizing yourself first.
And
that comes back to everything that we talked about here. Everything we continually talk about is like your mental and physical well-being, and that includes like food, sleep, exercise, and your mind, your mental health as well. And if you just if you start prioritizing yourself, and making time, again, morning's the best time to do it because you're kind of setting up the landscape potentially for the rest of the day by setting your health and your well-being first. It's like you're going to have an easier time to set those boundaries like you talked about, and to say no and this and that, because you're getting, what's so nice about mindfulness is it's an intentional way of living. And the more that you intentionally use your time in order to optimize your experience and create more joy and happiness and more peace in your life, things are going to shift for you. Naturally, they're going to shift for you but it takes, again, a dedicated time that you need to do this every day in order to really achieve that state of clarity about who you could potentially be. So that's what I would say. And the Rock of Gibraltar for me, and I think it could be, is just finding my breath, being with my breath, because that just takes me right in. Like, that's why I mentioned in the beginning with the 5 breathing, with that 5 breath, practice in the beginning, just taking those 5 breaths, it kind of wakes me up like, oh, this is Will Schneider. Not like the hot mess that, just coming out of some situation or getting riled up about some fucking bullshit that has no bearing on my life. It's like, I can be like, no, I can let that go. I don't need to suffer that way. How can I move on beyond this? And the more you do that, the more you rescue yourself from, this emotional roller coaster that you can just be on your whole life. When you pull yourself off that roller coaster, it's like, wow, this is how life can be. And the answer is yes. But you have to show up and you got to practice and keep listening to the show.
That's right.
And there's a lot of practices that we constantly put out there, and it will help you. That's why we do this.
Amen to that. Here's a little applause for that.
Thanks. We're waiting to use that one. That's awesome. Thanks, John. We got to find applause for yours. Both of us. We're applause for all of it.
Well, I got to give a shout out to our those who put in voice memos. I see some messages coming in on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, and one from my sister, my older sister, who's a rock. Nick, thanks for listening to the show. Love you, sis, and thanks for the comments. All right, so that's the end of our voice memos, but I know we've got a little bit more time. We've gotten some questions sent to us via email that I'd like to cover a couple of, if you're comfortable doing that, Will.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading this from your sister. She's, thank you so much, Jon and Will. Best quote ever. No is a sentence. I love that. Thank you so much for all that. Learning boundaries, and how old and how
and I'm how old? Question mark.
I'm how old? Right. I was got yes. Okay. Anyway, I just like Anyway, so I just reading that. So what are we saying, John? Here, I'm sorry.
So I was just saying, hey, thank you to those who did put in voice memos. We very much appreciate you all, and hopefully we'll do this again in the future. But we've gotten some questions that were sent to us via email, and I'll just jump into some of those and maybe cover those if you want to go there next.
Yeah. Which one? Why don't we jump in the second one, right? Because I think we've kind of talked about the onboarding and getting to know your practice, but what about you're already in the practice? So here's that question. Any recommendations of how I can deepen my mindfulness practice and continue to make progress? To deepen your, so what is that? So how do we, so somebody's already been doing this for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. It's like, and they want to go deeper. What are you thinking, John?
Yeah, I mean, again, continue just like you would for the gym. Continue going and continue working on your practice, and start to incorporate it into like all that you do, right? So we have the meditation, right? That's great, and I very much encourage meditation. But when the meditation, like Will, as a yoga teacher and yoga practitioner, I'm sure you've used the term, what happens off the mat or something to that effect. Well, what happens outside of the meditation? You have to be mindful in your relationships. You have to be mindful in your work. You have to be mindful of yourself and your emotions that you're experiencing, not judging yourself or those emotions. I think, incorporating that mindfulness into all that we do, everyday activities, which I know a lot of us are doing, but maybe while you're walking, you pay attention to the sounds of your feet hitting the ground, or the sensation, the physical sensation of that. You pay attention to the breeze blowing over your skin, or the leaves blowing in the trees. Doing a mindful meal, like eating. So many of us have our phones in front of us or our computers in front of us while we're eating a meal, and we don't even know what it is we ate. Like paying attention to the shapes, the textures, the colors, the smells, the tastes of the meal. Maybe having that meal with someone close to you that you love and enjoying the experience, or even like something as mundane as household chores. I forget, I read it somewhere this morning. Somebody said something about, maybe in one of my LinkedIn posts, they commented about incorporating mindfulness into their everyday chores, their household chores. When they're sweeping, right? Sweeping the kitchen, sweeping the floor, they pay attention to what that feels like. They pay attention to what it is they're experiencing. So it's really all about being present and fully engaged with anything that you're doing, with the task at hand, the present moment, and then acknowledging your senses and your emotions in those moments. I think that's a way to really deepen that mindfulness practice. Anything from you, Will?
Yeah, for sure. I would suggest sitting longer. Like if you've come this far with your practices, and imagine that you meditate on a regular basis, I would say increase the time of meditation. Or, and maybe you're already at 20, 25 minutes. What if you stop for 30? What if you stop for 30 minutes a day? And just like, that's like, I know it only sounds like 10 minutes, but the mind will take you to new places in that extra 10 minutes because you've already developed a pattern within your meditation of just doing 20. So that could be a great way to deepen your practice. I would start studying some masters, pick up some books, and read. And I would go on a retreat. Like I've done Vipassana meditation 3 times now. It's like 10 days in complete silence and 100 hours of meditation, 10 hours of meditation a day. Every meditation is an hour. Profound experiences, like the hardest stuff I've ever done, but the most rewarding at the same time. Maybe not at the same time because it's fucking hard, but it's really hard. But it's like, I come out with deep, deep, deep insight that I would not be able to gain if I didn't take my time to deepen my practice, to go sit and study and practice with practices that have been around for thousands of years because they work. That's flat out why they work. Another thing I'd recommend, this is just a recommendation, is I have had profound experiences taking psychedelics. And it might not sound like it's deepening, my meditation practice, but what psychedelics and how I'm beginning to understand how to speak to psychedelics, it gives you a peek behind the curtain of consciousness that you cannot get there by being sober. You just can't. And
I don't want to use the word sober.
Well, I'm not, I mean by just being, breathing practice, the holotropic breathing. But I'm saying just like, having an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And psychedelics is a way to do that. And they've helped me to just understand on a deeper level what it means to be kinder to myself and other people. What does it really mean to be connected to the whole and having the actual experience instead of it just kind of be a thought. It's opened up more of my heart. It helps me to observe my relationships and how I could be kinder, more loving, and more deliberate, more present in my relationships, and apologize where I need to. It just has really helped me to double, triple, quadruple down into how incredibly important it is to be mindful and to practice and to be a good, loving soul and a person in the world. But that's like it's a deepen your practice. Psychedelics, if that's an opportunity, go ahead and do it. Or if you want to go down that route, if you can, I highly recommend it. So those are some things the ways that I would definitely deepen and sit with masters, sit and learn from masters.
With the psychedelics, I just want to put out a disclaimer that you don't want to do that on your own. You don't want to do that, as a kind of a recreational use, where you can, but right. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about using it as a healing modality, and when you do that, the set and setting are important. And what I mean by that is, what your mindset going in is not going in just to have fun. It's going in to really kind of, like Will said, peek behind the curtain. And then the setting is very important. So where you are, who you're surrounded by, do you feel safe, that kind of thing. So I think that's very important. The other thing, this is actually an answer to another question, but may as well wrap it up into this, in terms of deepening your practices or advancing your knowledge, doing some research, reading on it. There are some incredibly powerful teachers who are out there, and they've got the books that are readily available to us. Thich Nhat Hanh, all his stuff is fantastic, and I'm not trying to teach any particular religion or theology or it's not about that. It's about tapping into the peace that you can find through this work. Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's known as the father of mindfulness in the West, founded mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. He's here in the States. He introduced mindfulness to a lot of veterans who were struggling with stress and anxiety and help to reduce that. And then, there's other books and ways to tap into all these resources that are out there. But I think Thich Nhat Hanh and Jon Kabat-Zinn are great. Anything by either one of them are fantastic resources that can help you to really advance where you are, your knowledge of these practices.
Another book I read a while ago is called The Diamond Cutter by Geshe Michael Roche, which I enjoyed. And he, he has like a few things in that book, and it's about like deepening your practice, staying, on the path, that kind of thing. And one of them is like and this is also kind of a Buddhist tradition as well, because he's a Buddhist Geshe teacher, is like, taking a retreat, and maybe that could be an official kind of retreat, getting out there, or just like, he also recommends just going away for 5 days and completely disconnecting from any kind of your typical responsibilities as a human being, and also the technology, and just getting in silence for 5 days and just being with yourself and nature for 5 days, and practicing, what your meditation, breathing, and getting in nature. And it's just like, it's amazing when you get quiet, John, and you really begin to observe yourself, like what is going to boil up to the surface. And it's I was shocked, John, as I sit there in my third Vipassana after like I've been on this path for almost 20 years, like the rage and the anger and all the fucking shit that's down there. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, there's always work to do, but, and I was glad that was, part of my experience, because I got to see it, I get to know it, and now it's like not so scary, or it's less likely to control me in some ways.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to stop, man. I think we've answered some great voice memos. So thank you all again for those who sent those in, and thank you for those who sent in these text or email questions as well. Great stuff. I very much appreciate you, and I know Will does too. Normally this is where we ask the guests, hey, what's the best way for listeners to find you? So I'm just going to tell you, the listeners, the best way to find me and Will is on mentalkingmindfulness.com. Check us out there, and then we're on all the different social medias. My little boy, he's just now learning how to say the TH sound. And before that, he's always said st, and he says, like, instead of the word things, he says stings. And so we are on all the stings. We're on all the things. We're on various social medias. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. So check us out there. We'd love to have you following us there and helping to spread the show. That all said, like I said at the very beginning, we bookend this show, beginning and end, with a grounding practice. So I would love to guide you all through a grounding practice to set you all up for the rest of your day, wherever that may be and whenever it may be, whether you're listening to us live now or in the podcast recording later. So let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So let's do some of that 4-7-8 breathing that we discussed before. And again, what that's going to look like is we're going to start by an exhale, and then we're going to breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, exhale for a count of 8, and we're going to do that 4 times. Okay, begin by exhaling, really emptying your lungs, bringing your navel to your spine. Now inhale for 4, hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 4. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 4. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last round. In for 4. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And finally out for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And now just to start, bring some movement back in your body, rolling your shoulders, wiggling your fingers, your toes, maybe moving your neck around. All right, awesome stuff. Will, I'll leave it up to you to close it off, man.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I can't believe we're in our halfway through our 7th season now, essentially, and we just did an episode having the voices of our audience on our show. So it really shows how far we've come, and that just lends itself, I think, to how much we appreciate all of you for listening to the show, supporting the show, but also beginning, like all these questions are all about how can I be a better person? How can I regulate myself? How can I use mindfulness to optimize my experience? And that's what we're here to do. And please, if so use the voice memo to even hey, give us some ideas for topics that you like to listen to. Please, stay connected with us. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this, John. Thank you. It's just great rapping me and you. It's amazing what happens when we're talking about something that we're so passionate about,
right?
And because of how much it helps people and how much it's helped ourselves. So
indeed,
so I thank you, everybody, for listening and being part of the show. The merch store is open, follow us, all that good stuff, and hey, leave us a review would be a big help to us as well. And I have Wednesday tonight, 5:00. Every
5 p.m.
Wednesday,
Eastern time.
Drop in Breath of Meditation.
There you go. There you go. Thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, take care. Peace.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.